My pension.
I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask for a roll call. Marzen?
Dr. Shoemaker?
Here.
Mrs. Gaines?
Here.
Mrs. Boland?
Here.
Dr. Flowers?
Present.
Mr. Leary?
Here.
Mr. Phelan?
Here.
Dr. Power?
Here.
Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag. Our next item of business is a moment of silence for persons who have passed away. The first is Suzanne Brown Motzenbecker of Newport, passed away on Saturday, February 23rd, 2013, at Victoria Court in Cranston. Born on June 8th, 1923 in Newport, Mrs. Motzenbecker attended Rogers High School, Milgram's Secretarial School in Newport. It was employed by the Newport School Committee for 20 years, retiring in 1989 as the microfilm technician for Central Administration. The second one is Kathleen Mary Thompson of Newport, passed away on Wednesday, March 6th at St. Clair's home in Newport. Born in April 24, 1927 in Newport, Mrs. Thompson was a graduate of St. Catherine's Academy, Catherine Gibbs Secretarial School, and was employed as a bookkeeper/secretary for the U.S. government. Mrs. Thompson is survived by her daughter, Rogers High School clerk typist Teresa Lentz, and her husband, David. The third is Anthony P. Franco of Wakefield, passed away on Saturday, March 9th at South Kingston Nursing and Rehabilitation Center. Born on August 2nd, 1924 in Providence, Mr. Franco served in the U.S. Navy from 1943 to 48 aboard the U.S. Lexington and the USS Apollo, and held a private pilot's license. Mr. Franco is survived by his son, Cogshell Elementary School Principal Michael Franco, and his wife, Christine. That's for a moment of silence. Thank you. Next item of business is public comment. Has anybody signed up or anybody wish to comment? Okay. This is what you guys are waiting for. A resolution related to Rogers High School boys indoor track Class C state champions. And Mrs. Boland's going to present the resolution.
Yeah, I'd like to call all the track team on up. Stand up around the podium. Got to have your day of fame here. And go ahead and turn around. You can face the audience. You can block me. It doesn't matter. Okay. All right. And we have Coach Tooch here, and we have Mr. Colley that came to represent this fine group of young athletes. And I'd like to say a few words about them before we get started, which is they won for the first time in 7 years. We've now brought the championship for the Class C championship back to Newport. And as Coach Tooch pointed out, this was a total group effort. If one of you had not shown up, this would not have happened that night, because it took a group effort, all of you bringing home those first place, seconds, and thirds. And it's a great honor that's here for us tonight. And we're now going to enter into, I think most of you are going to be doing outdoor track, right? So we're hoping for really great things again. But I just want to say something about our coach. So Coach Tooch is over there. He's a graduate of Rogers High School. He's a gym teacher here at the school. You can see how difficult this is to make this kind of commitment. He had to go home, get his daughter, and come back to school. And this is the kind of people that we have working with our young students. They work tirelessly day in and day out to make these students into athletes and student athletes. And I think that it's important to tell a little story that a parent told me just recently. She said, Coach Tooch went in the 8th grade, told her son, said, you know what, my son came home from school today and he said, Mom, Coach Tooch told me that I look like I could be a thrower. He told me that I had really big muscles and that he thinks that next year I should really go out for that team. And I'll just say that that student right now is on this team, and had he not believed in that child, he might not have been there. So anyway, keep up the really good work. And so I'm going to read a resolution, and then I'm going to ask the team captains to come up. So whereas the Rogers High School Boys Indoor Track Team distinguished itself by recently winning the Rhode Island Class C State Championship on February 12, 2013 at the Providence Career and Technical Academy, and whereas Coach Andrew Martucci and members of the team, by achieving this honor, proved to the citizens of Newport and the state the quality of their training and practice, and whereas the achievement of this goal is further evidenced by the fine traditions of Rogers High School, and whereas the faculty, student body, parents, and citizens of Newport actively supported the efforts of the team, therefore be it resolved that the Newport School Committee formally extends to Coach Martucci and the members of the Rogers Indoor Track Team its congratulations on winning the Rhode Island Class C State Championship for the 2012-2013 school year, and offers to the staff and team members a unanimous well done on receipt of this great honor, and therefore be it that a copy of this resolution be spread upon the official records of the Newport School Committee, and the original be presented to Coach Andrew Martucci and the Rogers High School Indoor Track Team as an expression of our sincere appreciation and acknowledgement of their service to the school and our community. And signed by our superintendent and our head of our school committee, Dr. Shoemaker. So I'd like to ask the there you go. Good job, boys.
Coach Tucci, who is the hurdler?
Yeah, which one?
High hurdle.
Yakub Iqbal?
Where are you? Let me see. Okay, I just wanted to get a look at you. My son holds the Rogers records for the 110. I don't know if they even do that anymore.
Oh, they still do. He's a freshman. He scored in 3 different events at the freshman states. He got a second, a third, and a fourth this year. So he's got some potential.
I keep my eye on these hurdlers because that record goes back to 19... Oh, it's long.
I think it was 1987. I think. Paul Gates, right?
Yeah, you know him.
He coached me when I was in high school. Right?
Oh, okay.
Dr. Shoemaker,
Yes.
I have to say it's another success story. Andrew is one of my former students.
5th grade. I was
5th grade under his school, right, yes. The terrible temper over here was your teacher. Congratulations.
Congratulations to everybody. You're welcome to stay and listen to the rest of this meeting, but
Or you can go.
you're
Do your homework.
Oh, gee.
Take care, guys. Yeah, be good.
Joe.
Just ask Grady if he took his tutoring.
The next item on the agenda is the student council update. Gabriel Hermes.
So Rogers students are at their midterm of the 3rd quarter. Winter sports have wrapped up for the year and spring sports are starting. The phys ed department held a successful dodgeball tournament that many students attended. The sophomores are hosting a faculty versus student basketball game on Thursday. Seniors will begin to present their senior projects on March 26th. Grady Bolin represented Rogers at the Congressional Youth Cabinet meeting last Saturday with Rhode Island Representative David Cicilline. Rogers Jazz Band will be performing in Newport's annual St. Patrick's Day Parade Saturday. And Rogers Theater Company continues to rehearse for their upcoming spring production of Guys and Dolls. And that's all for now for the Viking Report.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We go on to the next item, which is the consent calendar. Do you want to take it all at once, or do you want to take item by item?
I move approval, and people can vote on their exceptions.
Second.
Okay. Moved and seconded to approve the consent calendar. Does anybody want to withdraw anything from the consent calendar? Yes.
Dr. Shu, can we please take out the
Personnel.
principal
Personnel action?
Yeah, the principal and the
Well, I'm going to take the personnel action, the whole thing
personnel
out.
action out, okay.
Okay. So we'll leave in minutes and request for home instruction. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Now we go back to the extracted item, which is personnel. What position do you want to pull out of that, Mrs. Bowen?
I wanted to pull out the principal and the director of curriculum,
Executive Director of Teaching, Learning,
Learning,
and
Curriculum.
Professional Development.
yes.
I don't see principal here.
I mean, transfers.
It's a transfer.
Oh, okay.
And
Any other
Mr.
extractions?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if you could pull out the custodian. Actually, why don't you just pull all the transfers and make it easier, and just do a separate vote on each one of them.
Okay. All right, let's do the transfers first, let's start at the top. Appointments. Jennifer Booth, Executive Director of Teaching, Learning, and Professional Development. Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion on this item?
Yeah, I wanted to take this into executive session for our policy manual. I don't know if we can do that at the end of the meeting.
For policy manual?
Right,
Policy, I think, said may,
may, it says may,
Yeah,
it
and
doesn't say shall.
And I must say, just to give you some perspective, I've been here on the board, on the committee for, I guess, 8 years. And all those times, and you've been here for 10,
I know, 12.
12, and all those times, we've always done it with a recommendation from the superintendent followed by a vote. We have never had a executive session on these matters, so just as a precedent. Yes,
This would just be to discuss the procedure.
we can bring that up at another time, but this is right now the discussions on the appointment of Jennifer Booth. Superintendent, have any comment?
Yes, Dr. Booth came through the process. There was a screening committee consisting of a community representative, an equity representative, 3 administrators, 3 teachers. That screening committee forwarded to me 3 names. I interviewed those 3 candidates. I did extensive background checks, and I'm recommending to you tonight that you appoint Jennifer Booth to be the Executive Director of Teaching, Learning, and Professional Development.
Any other? I'm sorry.
Since I've been here, I've hired approximately 12 administrators, and prior to my coming, Dr. Knoll hired probably another 5, and all of them have gone through this process, and none of them had to have a public forum, as the school committee policy said you may do. So I'm recommending the school committee appoint Dr. Booth this evening.
Mr. Phelan, you have a comment?
Yes, is it possible that we could have a vote on this, on the, going to executive session?
I think, no, I think the superintendent has chosen to go down the May on that one option, and I think we ought to follow through with it. So I'll say no to that.
Mr. Chairman, what's the policy say, Mrs. Bowen? You have the policy with you?
I have it right here.
Yes. I don't have the exact word.
Because you may have to have a lawyer have an opinion.
No,
just
the
says may.
the policy says the school committee may entertain a public forum for principals and above. I just wrote down names of folk that have been hired in my memory. And the only one on this list, it goes back to Dr. Tresky, Eric, Mike Franco, Joan Tracy, most recently, Carolyn, Patty DiCenzo made a public statement after she was voted in. That was her choice. I think Mrs. Easter also did that, but again, that was her choice. We have not had a public interview with anyone since Vicki Johnson was hired. And that had to be nearly 20 years ago. So I see no need for that. I would not support it. If the appointee wants to make a public statement upon appointment, that's up to them. But the policy says that we may. So I guess with 4 votes, you may.
Dr.
So then it should be a vote.
Dr. Shoemaker.
Yes.
I think that word "may" tells us a lot. That's number one. Number two, the idea of having public interviews, if you will, I think would be more appropriate if the person was not a known entity. And I think Dr. Booth has certainly proven herself professionally over a number of years. So it just seemed to me it would be a waste of time, and I would take the good judgment not only of the superintendent, but of the group, of the people who interviewed her.
I just have one question. We've been doing this at least for my 8 years, and at least for 4 years with Dr. Knoll. Why at this point in time are we choosing to change what we've been doing? It comes as a shock to me when I heard that this was the direction you wanted to go in tonight, Mrs. Boland. I just don't know why we're making that change tonight.
Well, if we were going to discuss it out in public, then we would be doing that, but we're not.
What, discuss what?
Exactly why I said I wanted to go into executive session, so.
Could I make a request? This might sound a little bit foolish, but could people please speak into the microphone? Some of us are a little hard of hearing down here. I couldn't hear what Mrs. Boland said.
The only motion on the table is to approve Mrs. Booth, or Miss Booth, rather.
Dr. Booth.
Dr. Booth. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
4-3.
Mr. Chair, can I say one thing? I'm not voting against the person at all.
All right.
That's not the issue or anything like that. So I just want to let that be known.
Okay. So you got the vote, Martin?
4-3.
Okay.
No, I didn't vote against it.
Did you abstain?
No, I voted for it. Yeah. It had,
It's 5-2.
executive session was about something else.
Now, there's 3 others appointments. I don't think we need to. Does anybody wish to extract these other 3? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to approve the other 3 under appointments.
Hold on a second.
You see it? Under the appointments, the first group.
Yep, no problem, yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
You
Now,
want to announce them, or you announce them all at the end?
yes, let's go to transfers.
I move acceptance of the transfers as proposed.
We'll vote separately, each one of them.
You want to extract one?
I still respect them all I asked for. I asked for separate vote on all of them.
I move acceptance of the first Principal Underwood School to Principal Pell Elementary.
Second.
Okay. Open for discussion. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I move approval of custodian Cranston Calvert to Carpenter, Newport Public Schools.
Second.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I have some concerns about this in the area of combining services with the city. I would like to ask what a carpenter is doing when we have 3 new schools.
As I had mentioned to you before, Bobby, this recommendation is for the remainder of this year. It is my belief we need to fill this position, and it has been temporary in nature because we have all these old schools. So at this point in time, that's what this recommendation is for. Should the school committee choose to decide that we don't need this, I would imagine that that's something that you could take up in your budgetary discussions.
So my concern here is that you're giving false hopes to a lot of people. I don't know how everybody else is going to vote, but I am quite clear that when we pass this new Pell School bond, no question in my mind that we got a lot of people who support this thing that may have not supported it. We didn't tell them we're going to save $800,000 that first year. And in that savings, it was 3 custodians, 2 secretaries, 2 professional staff, and 2 principals, which was publicized bought out, fact, and put out. So at some point, we're gonna have to vote on whether we're gonna make that savings or not. You're giving false hopes to a lot of people. When you got 7 custodians, you're gonna eliminate 3 of them.
I don't think we're giving false hopes to anybody. I think we're making this decision now. We have 2 open custodial positions, Bob, even with the transfer of Ms. Murgo. So we have 2 open custodial positions. They are being filled by temporary folks. So right now, they haven't been given any hope of having any full-time permanent jobs, and if in fact the union requires us to move forward with those 2 positions before the end of the year, it will be made clear to whoever applies to those positions that the intention is to reduce the custodial staff as a result of the Pell School.
So why would we be doing this when we have to pay unemployment if we just continue for 3 months the way we're going?
We're not hiring anybody.
You just said you had 2 more custodian positions.
Well, they're temporary custodians now. They're temporary custodians now. We have to staff, we've had retirements, we've had people leave. This is just moving 2 people who are currently employed to different situations. That's all it is, Bob.
So,
The other people are substitute custodians. They'll get what they get for unemployment. They're not on the pension system or anything else.
so my question too is that Mr. Michaels had a hearing with us, and that's going to arbitration, am I correct?
I think that these are personnel issues that I really.
No, I think it's very important when you're going to vote. If
would
you're going to have arbitration, and if he wins his arbitration, he's got to be moved back.
You know what, you can always speculate on what happens then, Bob, but that's something that you'd have to take into consideration.
I think you make
at
that,
point.
I really totally disagree with this. I think
Okay.
the city has a carpenter. We're going to have 3 new schools. You got, everybody in this building's hired a carpenter. I think hiring a utility, a person, or a maintenance person is fine, but a carpenter is a top step, the 10th grade, the top one, and we're not going to have much wood around and more to do. And if you think of carpenter, they're working with wood. So, again, like Mr. Phelan said earlier, my vote's not against the candidate. It's that you're trying to consolidate the city. And wait till the council gets to hear of this, that we've been talking about combining services. Now, we're going to hire a carpenter. And they said they got somebody when you need one,
Well, we have a carpenter now, and Mr. Butler has been filling in that position for a long time. All I'm recommending is that right now, he's appointed to the position. That position will be revisited come July 1st. And that's what I'm telling you. With regard to the transfer, that person is also on board and is just being moved to another vacant position. The net of this whole thing is we'll still have 2 temporary folks under our employ. We're not filling those positions at this point in time, Bob.
Okay, it's been made in
I just want to clarify, we're not hiring anybody new here, that we're simply moving the dice.
That's what transfer is. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Phelan?
Shuffling them all around.
My question is this position 100% carpentry? Or
No,
what percentage
No.
would you say?
no, it's not 100% carpentry. It's a jack of all trades.
No, but I mean, filling in for other people, people called out, vacation, sick, otherwise, so.
Probably all of the above at this point in time, but that's what the carpenter always has done, those types of things.
So it's not really 100%?
No, it really isn't. It really isn't 100% carpentry. They're generalists. Even the plumber although he does more plumbing stuff, he's also a generalist. So we have 2 folks left who are sort of generalists. They fill in when they're needed in different types of situations. So that's basically what we have. We have 2 utility types of custodians at this point in time.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I just want to state that I'm going to be voting against this position, but not against the person at all.
Okay.
That's not the issue.
Yes, Ms. Flowers, or Dr. Flowers?
Just addressing what Mr. Leary said about the possibility, I'm not going to say probability, but possibility of the city side and our side collaborating. As I recall, there was an effort to even collaborate for grass cutting, and that seemed to be put to one side until another year. So I think this is a safe step to take, because suppose we happen to need the person in this position for something at this particular time. I assume he understands that this will be revisited later on. This, to me, is a safe step to take. And let's not bank on an immediate collaboration with the city services.
Seeing no other hands, all in favor of this
Aye.
transfer? Opposed?
Nay.
So you get the vote, Morrison? Okay. Nicole Cardoza.
No, that's not the reason.
Oh.
Position.
Oh, okay.
Halftime early childhood coordinator to .8
FTE.
FTE.
This is funded through IDEA monies. We're finding more youngsters who are eligible for preschool special education
Yeah.
services. So we need to increase the time that she is available.
So that was, I was going to ask that question, we got nothing in our packet explaining it.
Nobody seconded it.
That's right. I can't talk yet.
I moved it.
Oh,
Okay,
second.
It's moved and seconded.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, that was my question, I guess. There's nothing in the packet explaining what that's for. So is she only half-time now, or is she full-time?
She's half-time now.
Does she have another job, .5, something else? No. Okay, so it's money from IDA money, and that's it. If I explain that one, you have to pull that one. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, these things come and they come at the last minute and I'm trying to put them on, but that's the explanation for that.
Motion.
Then,
Vote.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Teaching, learning, and professional development secretary to the director.
Skip one.
Let's skip them.
No,
Yeah, Pat Murgo.
oh, yeah.
Custodian.
Custodian Underwood to custodian Cranston Calvert. Since we approved the custodian to Carpenter, this now becomes a transfer as a result of that.
Is there a motion?
That's the motion.
Second.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. Phelan?
I'm going to be voting against this because I voted against the
Against
carpenter.
Murgo.
Nothing against the person.
I have a question.
Dr. Flowers?
Are there already present 2 custodians at Underwood? Does that leave someone at Underwood now?
There are 2 custodians at Underwood.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, call the
All in favor?
No,
No, I couldn't hear the answer.
Yeah. Yes.
There is one person there, so
One
there'll be
in-
one person
right.
left. Well,
It's-
that makes more sense, okay.
There are 2 custodians
Yeah, well,
at Cranston Calvert. There's 1.5 at Underwood, there's 1.5 at Sullivan, and there's 1 at Coggeshall.
So, Mr. Chairman, the reason I pulled this one, all of them, I guess, was, so are you going to be hiring somebody for Underwood now?
We have a temporary person at both Underwood and I guess Cranston Calvert, okay?
Temporary,
They're
okay.
temporary, okay?
Okay.
Hence,
Split
what
their
you
time.
had asked for, Bob, about what do we do going forward? These people would not be, continue to be gainfully employed because we had all promised what the savings would be for the Pell School.
okay.
Any further discussion on this pending transfer? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
The next one is secretary to director of technology,
2.
to
Secretary.
executive direct, wait a minute, that's a transfer.
Yep, to Secretary,
Secretary of
To-
Director, to Director of Technology, to Secretary for the Executive Director of Teaching, Learning, and Professional Development.
yes. Do you want this, Mr. Rembers?
Yeah.
Okay, he wants it.
He's
We-
back home.
I need a motion, is there a motion to move?
That was the motion.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on this item? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Look at the smile on this man's face,
Glad to
okay?
be back.
Congratulations, Morrison. And I know you know your new boss, so.
And the next one is part-time FTE, .5 FTE special ed at Thompson Middle School to .6 FTE special ed at
Thompson.
Cranston
No.
Calvert.
Mrs. Gaines has made the motion, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on this item?
Could you explain that?
Because this person going to be
Yeah,
in
I
two
would-
places now?
Yeah,
Okay.
the problem that we're having with this is we had an inordinate amount of kids come in who had special needs. And we've been working really hard to deal with the overages, and finally, we got to the point where we weren't able to implement
To be full-time.
implement the IEPs without bringing this person on for additional time.
So this person will now be .6 at Thompson, .4 at Cranston
That's the
Town.
whole
That-
week, yeah.
That's correct.
Vote.
Other discussion on the item? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, I think that completes the,
Well, except for the
Personnel.
leave of absences, I move leave of absences and resignations.
okay.
Second.
Any discussion on those? All in
Mr. Chairman,
favor?
Dr. Ambrosi could explain the leave without pay, and what's the policy in the school department, and what they're doing for the leave without pay?
Well, with leave without pay, a certain percentage of the teaching population can legitimately request a leave without pay for a year. And we've had that. We haven't had many recently,
For any reason at all?
any
Yeah.
reason at all.
That's in the contract?
It's in the
Yes.
contract.
So they could be taking another job,
It's
doing
a
whatever they want to do?
sabbatical, no. It's a
Uh,
sabbatical.
Well, no, they
it's
can
not.
take,
It wouldn't be in
we
this.
can't ask them for a reason. They can take a year's leave without pay. Yes.
Okay, that's my question.
I mean, we.
It's in the policy, it's in the-
It's in the contract.
Contract.
Yes,
Covered by law.
it's in the contract. And we've had situations like that before.
Oh, I know, I just want to make sure the public realizes this, that's all.
Yeah, yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Dr. Powers?
you know, I know this has come up before about, leave without pay, and I think that there's a piece of it that sometimes when you look at people who are working in a school system, and if they're not happy here, and they think that some other place that they want to go, this sometimes gives them the opportunity to go do that, and they don't stay here, and they're not unhappy. I know that sometimes people think they're going out to find a better thing, and sometimes maybe they are, but sometimes it may be a better thing for us, if they're not happy here, that they do go find something else and they don't stay here.
Ms. Gibbs.
I don't think that that's the situation with this individual. I think that there are other issues, but again,
Seeing no other hands, I'll ask for approval of the leave of absence and the resignation. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Dr. Booth, would you like to make a few comments?
I just want to thank
Yeah.
you. I'd just like to say thank you. I'm looking forward to the challenge. I'm a little bit sad that I won't be at Pell School because I've spent so much time on the building committee and working toward the transition, but I'm sure in my present position that I'll have the opportunity to continue making it a smooth transition and serving the children of Newport. Thank you.
Thank you.
When
Congratulations.
does it stop? When does it stop? When does the position stop?
Next year.
Next year.
I don't know. I
right
don't
right
know.
now.
Right now it stops.
Oh, that's as of today?
No, as of Monday.
As of Monday?
We need, you saw my stuff, we need transition time because Dr. Naspo is leaving at the end of the year. And Dr. Fry left, and we need to be able to have some sort of transition given the substantial initiatives from the State Department of Education, which we're trying to keep up with. So we've got grants and other types of things, and Dr. Naspo will be working with Dr. Booth over the course of the next 3.5 months or so to bring her up to speed as to what the grants are, where we are with them, and some of the other initiatives that we've been involved with.
And who's covering Cranston Calvert?
Dr. Booth will be there. It just is not that onerous a situation, and the executive director of teaching and learning can work from any site location, so, and she can do things remotely, Morrison, and he's a whiz at technology, so.
Mrs. Gaines brought up a related and it was going to just put another item on your plate. Because of the failures of the people, of the 11th graders who have failing grades in math, who might not have their degrees, some schools in the state are starting a crash program in math in the spring with the ideas that get some of these kids ready for the, and I just think we have to think about such look at some of the options and see what we can do, because it's not going to be a pretty picture if we have all those kids not going across the stage.
Oh, may I?
Yes,
Mr.
you would.
Chairman? It's not a whole lot of kids, it's 38 kids. And we don't know what percentage of those 38 kids are kids who are in regular ed, kids who are ELL, kids who have IEPs. That hasn't been brought to us yet. But I'm sure that this district is working with those 38 kids to bring them to proficiency. I don't know how, but I can't believe they're just sitting back and waiting for a miracle to happen.
I can just say that we are working on it. We've been meeting for the last 3 weeks with the leadership, the math leadership, and the principal leadership at the high school, and addressing this very issue, because we have to come up with a plan. We're already working towards that. And we're looking at what we can do between now and the end of the year. We're looking at mandatory summer programming. We're looking at all sorts of things.
Good.
Have you looked at collaborating with some of our local colleges and universities? Sorry.
No, not you, I can't hear her.
Oh,
Oh, I thought you were talking to Mike, and I was looking around.
Hey, we're no Mike.
Yes, we have. We've actually talked to the possibility of working with Salve on
Okay.
it. So, yes, we are all over that.
okay.
We have all sorts of plans. And in terms of transitioning, Dr. Booth, the knowledge and the activities and all of the things that we need to do, going back to my former position, when I was in that position before it was split apart, and the activities that we're already involved in, I can do that going to Cranston Calvert. So I will be there as much as possible, trying to get that going, while, once again, I have Marson back in my office, which is just really a wonderful thing. So I can leave a little bit more now, because currently I've been doing it all myself. Having Marson come back in will free me up to be able to go and be in Cranston Calvert, so that doesn't fall apart either. So that's how I intend to help transition.
And you will keep us informed on what's happening with those 38 kids?
Yes.
Good, thank you.
Charlie?
Yes.
As
Dr.
long as
Bull.
this got brought up, I want to comment on it. I think, first of all, it's 38%, which is 107 kids, and it's, so it's really more like 41 students. But I think they just got that mixed up. But I think that we might want to also look at some of the things they're doing. I know Pawtucket, instituted some pretty, radical fixes, but they sound like, they're really not trying to put a Band-Aid on it, but trying to, fix a problem. And of course, systemically, we got to start it earlier than just trying to rescue these 11th graders. But I know that all 41 of those, if they end up on, the dole of this city, because that's what happens when kids don't graduate. So we really have to take this seriously, and I think now's the time to get on it, so.
Thank you. I'm going to move on to Section 6, action items. The first is is it the second reading of a policy number 4610, and I'll ask Dr. Flowers, you just want to comment?
This is the second reading of the two readings that we have. It has been, I'm going to say the word, astounded at the difficulty of being able to get the subcommittee together. I believe, Dr. Shoemaker, you had a thought about holding some of this before we find out
Well, my comment to Dr. Flowers
another
was,
step.
when I looked at this whole policy, not only the part that's in red, but it talked about a screening committee. It wasn't very clear what the screening committee was going to do and how they were to function. And my suggestion is we're going to have some consultants related to the superintendent search in town very soon, and I would like to see us table this until we've had a chance to talk to them and get clarification on the language, so we do it once and do it right.
I'll move that.
Second?
And second.
Okay, there's a motion to table them, it's been seconded. Any comments? I guess it's not a debatable issue. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Then we go on to item 6.2, which is a request for a proposal of the superintendent's search consultant, review and selection by a school committee. I understand that 3 separate corporations submitted a proposal, and each of us have a copy of that. I don't know, does somebody want to make a motion on one of them, and then we can, just as a starter?
I'd like to make a motion.
Yes.
I move that we hire the firm with Young, and my screen just went blank.
Hazard Young, not to leave.
Hazard Young and,
Tia, whatever.
Hazard Young and Associates.
Okay, is there a second to that?
I'll second it.
Okay. Any comments about that organization?
Yeah, I'd like to comment that I know that maybe NASDAQ is going to, I'm not sure which one we're going to go with today, but I felt that it was important that we make this more of a national search and have, and I know that we went out of our comfort zone this year when we got ourselves a lawyer, a new lawyer to work on contracts, but it turned out to be really, advantageous for the school committee and for the city. So I'm, in favor of trying to bring in somebody from the outs, maybe with a little more global presence. And I also, they were very clear about what they would charge to involve the public on each of their, having public meetings with, administrators, teachers, and so I know that they're a little more expensive than the other, but I don't think that we should, really try to, be penny foolish and pound free, or whatever that saying is.
Penny wise and pound foolish.
Yeah, and so that's why I'm in favor of using Young.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Well, I agree with Mrs. Boland about, certainly we should be looking, on a broad spectrum. I think that NASDAQ can look as broadly as any of these other companies can. And if you look at those companies, they're geographically located in a couple of different areas. NASDAQ is here in New England. The other two are in some different places. And I think that what you find when you go look through the country, that each one of these firms has kind of their niche in certain areas, but they also cast, a wide net. It has a lot to do with, where you advertise, and it also has to do with them reaching out through their network of people and getting people to look at a community. Clearly, there's a lot of talent, I think, in New England. NASDAQ knows that talent, and they can go to those people individually and personally say to them, I think Newport's a good fit for you. This is what they're looking for. And that's what those firms do. They have knowledge of people who are out there that are moving around, and they have the ability to make contacts with people and get them to look at it. It's not so much just us putting out the word that we're looking for somebody, but it's also going to be us trying to solicit people to come here and consider Newport as a place to work.
Mrs. Gaines?
When I first looked at these 3 proposals, I too was greatly impressed, and I still am, by some of the strategies that HYC have put forth. But then I got to the back page, and twice as much is a big difference. And I think if we are able to verbalize exactly what it is we expect the search firm to do, and if that firm has to add a couple of $1,000s, they can do that, and we're still under what is listed as $22,000, which will very soon get to 25, because these people will have to fly here. They won't be driving. Hotels, every time they come, it's going to be a hotel cost, and I'm not up for inviting them to stay at my house. So so no, I'm kind of messy. So I would defer to NASDAQ. I think we can work with NASDAQ and keep our costs in control.
Mr. Chair.
Go. All right, yes, you heard you. Go ahead, Mr. Phelan.
NASDAQ, the only problem with NASDAQ that I find is that when they did the 2 studies for us, they never interviewed the school committee. We are stakeholders, with the big word they were using. They interviewed everybody, but no one on the school committee. And I have a problem with that, so I can't support NESDEC because I don't think they did their thorough job.
Can I speak again?
Well, Mr. Leary had his hand up
No,
first.
go ahead, go ahead, Melissa.
I just want to say, we have to tell them what we want from the very beginning. NESDEC did what we asked them to do.
I just like,
But they never came and talked to any member of the school committee, and I have a problem with that.
I have just 2 comments about NESDEC. One is that apparently we are affiliated with an organization. It gives us a 20% reduction in fee, so it will be cheaper for us to go. But more important, I think, is we're most likely to get, not necessarily, but most likely to get a candidate for superintendent from the New England area. And because NESDEC, if you look at where most of their people where they've put people, they know people in these different communities. And anybody who's done a job search knows that sometimes looking at the piece of paper that is sent doesn't really reflect. What you really need to do is pick up the phone to somebody who knows the individual and knows you to get the true information. And so I think the familiarity of NESDEC people to NESDEC candidates from New England, for that reason, I feel more comfortable with going with NESDEC. Dr. Flowers?
I've read through all of this. Does NESDEC cast their net beyond New England at all?
Yes.
Well, then if they saw someone rise to the top that might be a good candidate, or even a few of them, we would have that opportunity, quite possibly. Because if we have excellent candidates in the area, it just seems that if we're always being charged with being fiscally responsible, and this seems to be a wise way to go, I think.
The motion is just for right now for one firm, and if it's turned down, then we can take up the others. But the first motion is for HYA. Any more comments? Otherwise, I'll ask for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
What's that, 3? How many? Okay. So, and against? Opposed, against, opposed? Okay.
Opposed, yeah.
So I'll take another motion then.
I move we hire NESDEC.
Second?
Okay. Discussion on NESDEC.
I've made my point. I've spoken twice.
3 times.
I would like to clear one thing to record, that, and I agree with Mr. Phelan 100%, that we asked, and it's on tape, you want to go back to the tape, we asked NESDEC what we wanted last time, and they did not provide it. Now, I know it's a different company, not a different company, but different people coming in. They probably weren't the right people, what we asked for last time, but they did not follow what we asked for. As far as I'm concerned, I cannot support that.
Further discussion.
I will end up supporting NESDEC because obviously I want a firm to come in and do this, but that was not my first choice. And I just think it's going to be really important that we make sure that we don't just take this at face value, what the price they gave us, but that we make sure we add all those things that we need to do, all the community involvement, the administrators, the teachers, and get all those focus groups going.
I agree with you.
Mr. Chairman?
Dr. Powers.
Mr. Leary and I usually don't agree, but I have some thoughts that, some of the things that he's putting out there are certainly things that I would consider and say, I hear exactly what his concerns are with NESDEC. But I think in this particular case with NESDEC and what we're asking them to do, and I think if we lay it out clearly to them, and you look at the couple of the searches they've done recently, they did Pawtucket, they did Westerly. Both of those are very strong superintendents. They, I think, did Dr. Ambrosi.
They did.
So,
you almost missed one.
Well, but my point being that I think that they have a very good track record. I understand your reservations about what transpired in the past. Thank you.
Other comments? Okay, I entertain them. We have the motion to approve NESDEC. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay.
5-2. Okay.
Just a point of information, I probably shouldn't mention it, but NESDEC was the search firm that hired me when I was appointed to
I
be superintendent
avoided that.
in 1984 in Lincoln.
God, did they reorganize
They
that?
messed up badly in 84 as well.
Twice, huh?
So I didn't want to mess up the conversation here. But in 1984, John Sullivan, the original executive director, was involved in that search, so they've been around for a long time.
I'm not going to admit knowing that.
Next item is approval of the calendar for the school year 2013 to 2014. Anybody see any conflicts or make any recommendations or changes in that?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mrs. Gaines.
last year, I think it happened when you were away, Jack, but we had a calendar from another district that was really, really informative. And I was wondering if Wendy ever forwarded that information to you.
I'll tell you, we can, yeah, and I remember that a bit, Joe, and I'll try and pull that up. I'm just asking for you to approve the dates on this one.
Oh.
We can revisit
format.
how
The format.
it goes on the website, and things
Yeah,
of that nature.
I think recognizing all the religious holidays is
Right,
is
right.
good.
yeah.
So move.
Second.
Mr. Leary?
Mr. Chairman, yeah, I ask this question all the time, and I'll ask it again. Have we consulted with Middletown, Portsmouth on graduation? So we
No,
don't have the same graduation night?
Not on graduation, but our days are always different unless they want to all have it on a Friday like they did before.
So I know it doesn't happen, but I know a lot of us got phone calls a few years ago when a grandparent had both graduations the same night,
Yeah.
and only could pick one to go to. I think it's not a hard thing to do. Maybe switch one around, maybe they can
It
switch
is done,
around.
yeah.
Well, you can, I don't know if there's a,
I understand
the
this
the only thing I talked with one of my colleagues about was whether or not they were starting before or after Labor Day, and they're starting after Labor Day as well. Some collective bargaining agreements allow teachers' year to start before Labor Day. I'm more of a, as many of you know, since I've been doing this for so long, I'm more of a traditionalist. I always like to start after Labor Day. But the new push is to start the last week in August. So a number of schools start the last week in August. We don't do that here for a number of different reasons, seasonal employment, vacations, things of that nature.
They will be coming in.
So I've reviewed this with the,
Yeah.
I've shared this information with the Teachers Association, and I think that this is an on-spot calendar.
So the motion's been made and seconded. Further discussion?
Yeah, just one more point of interest.
Yes.
That same grandparent has one graduating from Rogers next year. So we could be hearing from him again.
Well, it's not too.
We can always change it.
We'll tell the next superintendent.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
These things are, I shouldn't be flip about it, because these things are very difficult. We asked somebody to accommodate and change, and it shouldn't have been that much of a problem, but there was no response at all. And that was, that was a community where they actually resided, and they were grandparents of students. So, I mean, it's just, it's all about turf, I guess. As Charlie well knows, we really tried to do something with regionalization. And
That community doesn't move.
No, they didn't want to go at all, so.
No.
Okay.
Okay, item 6.4, resolution being presented by Dr. Power. You want to explain it?
Sure, Mr. Chairman. I'm putting this resolution in front of the committee tonight because the way things are set up right now, Newport does not get to follow the city charter. The state put some legislation in back in the 80s. Recently, we, for whatever reason, decided to follow that. Some of the communities follow it, some of them don't. But if we don't get this changed, then we are not allowed to follow the city charter. And in discussion with the city council, my understanding is that they're thinking about changing the charter. But if this doesn't change, it's not going to make any difference because they can change the charter, but the state's going to override it. So all I'm asking is that this committee ask the state to allow us to follow the city charter and not have the state dictate to us how we're going to do business here. It's kind of like a home rule thing. We should be able to do what's in our city charter and not have to follow the state. I'm not trying to get into numbers here. I'm just trying to say that, you know, right now we have a conflict between the state and the city. We're unable to follow our charter. We have to do what the state says, supposedly, although even some of the towns don't. I'd like to see us go back to being allowed to follow our charter, and if the city council decides that they want to change the charter, you know, that's fine with me. But right now, even if they change the charter, we can't follow our charter.
Since you introduced this, I'll accept that as a motion for the approval. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion of the item.
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Doc-
there is legislation being introduced by Peter Martin to change this. So this resolution will support his effort in the General Assembly.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Was that unanimous? Okay.
Yeah,
just want- I
you
just
track
want-
of less than 200
You
signatures.
never know, hold out long enough.
Just saying.
The next item is the Rogers High School schedule. Dr. Ambrosi, you want to introduce?
Yes. Mr. Leary asked that we bring this item up again. I did have Mr. Leary meet with Mr. Nelson. When I found out that Mr. Nelson wouldn't be able to be here this evening to further explain what has been done. I suppose Mr. Leary, thinks that I would be a hail fellow well met on this one because he knows I'm not in favor of the block, and I'm not. But for many years now, this has been what has been the de rigueur of high schools, and they've all done this. And what Mr. Nelson has proposed is better than the previous schedules, the previous block schedules that have been recommended. I think Bob would concur to that. I think what would be appropriate would be to get some folks together, some teachers, some school committee folks, if you wanted to talk about this. But I wouldn't recommend changing it at this point in time because the teachers have already worked hard to develop this block scheduling for next year. And I think this is a huge discussion, and it involves a lot of different types of things, including the minutes required for instruction and the advisory period that's required by the State Department of Education.
Let's let Mr. Leary go first.
Yeah, so
just because-
let's bring up the advisory, start that. The advisory by state law, and Mrs. Gaines is probably quite aware of this, can be 5 minutes, 50 minutes, whatever you want to make it. There's no set time on it. So you can do what you want with that. I agree with 100% Dr. Ambrosi. It's too late to change it this year, but I'd like to make sure this committee established for October. So Marcy, if you can get that in the minutes and make sure we get that set, so we can meet with the people to go to a 5-day, 7-period schedule. To me, it's a shame with the kids that we have that they only meet 4 days a week with math, 4 days a week with English, 4 days a week with science, 4 days a week with social studies. And I know the periods is going to be 69 and 48, but we need this at the face time in front of that teacher as much as possible. And when you miss a day, it's not hard, it's bad. You need the 5 days in front of that teacher. To me, that's the most important time, and not going to convince me. I'm not a fan of block schedule. And I do not have, but I can tell you the truth here, I've asked 40, 50 kids that either graduated or in school, and not one kid has ever said they like the block schedule to me. And the kids that are in school will say, oh, it's all right. And when they get out, they say, thank God I had an extra, well, during the old schedule, I had an extra, 20 minutes a day in a class, that when they had the block schedule, and then they could do their homework and get things done. And you ask people that are in school, and they say it's not used properly, the time. So that to me is important. And more important to me, you look at the timing, the prep periods, it bothers the heck out of me that you have an elementary teacher, and I'm a very big fan of elementary teachers, they get 220 minutes of prep time a week. And the high school is going to get 303 minutes of prep time a week. They're almost getting an hour more prep time, over an hour more prep time every week than an elementary teacher. And they're like the backbone of our system, the elementary. So I have a hard time when they're passing out more, and I know it's contractual, and I know the road, but to me, they should be in front of that teacher every day. And if we can make sure the committee is established in October, Marson, and I'll write myself a note that I would definitely sit on, and the other school members, and I would like to look in the direction of going to a 5-7 period, 5-day week with the teachers and the kids in front of the students every day.
Other comments on the issue? Mrs. Gaines?
I'm not a scheduler. I have spent a lot of years working on schedules, but I am not the scheduler. I do not know anything about setting up a high school schedule. I would rely on the teachers to work that out with, if necessary, if they need help in doing it, getting some consultant, get some help from Brown. There's the Annenberg Institute up there that would be willing to work with us and tell us what is best for Rogers, what's best for our kids. I don't, as a school committee person, I'm not comfortable telling you what you should, how you should teach. Okay? That's not my role. I think if there is some discomfort with the schedule at the high school, I think it should be studied, and I think it should be studied by the people who are experts in the field.
Other comments?
Charlie?
Yes.
I think you were off a little bit on that planning. I think what I'd like to really see happen in our new schedule is there's 165 minutes a week of collaboration time between besides their individual period a week. And I would hope that we could really, have great professional development during those periods. And also, I know that Portsmouth High School, because I did inquire, I called over there, they're able to do their scheduling so that all Algebra 1 teachers have off a specific period. It takes a lot of work, but it can be done. And you get all ninth grade English teachers off so that you really can have that kind of collaboration, in common planning that you really want to have. So I'd like to see us, and I don't know if it's too late for this year to see if it can be done,
One of the issues, Becky, is that Portsmouth is a much bigger high school.
Yeah.
So you're able to do those things.
Well, I just wouldn't rule it out.
I mean, that's a...
But you shouldn't rule it out unless we check and
Well,
see if it can be done.
obviously, we want to do as much of that as possible.
Right.
You can't compare Portsmouth High School and their ability to do the common planning with Rogers, but obviously, utilizing the common planning or that PD period is of paramount importance both there and at the middle school.
Mr. Chairman.
Martin, I think the key here is to make sure we put a note down to alert people what do you want in September?
I think October might be good, just get going
Okay.
that way, and start looking at it.
And then we can, not necessarily we're going to do anything, but at least visit and have it,
Revisit it.
yeah.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Dr. Power?
I agree that we should take a look at the high school schedule, and the reason I say that is because when I was here, we were going over to the block schedule, and nobody wanted to go there. And so now we're at the block schedule, and now people don't, now people are talking about going back the other way. And I think that before we go back and forth, we need to take a look at the block schedule, and did everybody get enough professional development to enact the block schedule? Is there pacing going on up there? Are we looking at pacing charts to make sure we're getting through the curriculum the way we should get through up there? I think there's a number of questions that if we take a look at that and bring some people in to take a look at that, we can answer those questions. And before we make any changes in it, we need to get answers to what's going on, how it happens, are the right things in place, have we given the support to the teachers that they need in order to enact that? I think there's a lot of questions that need to be answered. At the end of the day, we may end up changing that. But I think that before we ask a lot of questions, I don't think we should do anything other than ask a lot of questions.
Dr. Shoemaker?
Yes.
Looking at the report that's given us here and all the benefits of the 5-day proposed schedule, and it's obvious that there has a considerable amount of work has gone into this, a considerable amount of discussion. all the benefits and differentiated instruction, flexibility, better use of instructional time with the NACTIC students, all of these particular points. Going back in my own history, I think too often we sometimes had to work on planning various things, and then someone from on high would say no. And you sometimes say, well, why bother even ask us? I would be reluctant to be one of the people who's going to say, sorry, we're going to tell you how you can best serve the kids. Until you've worked it all out, it seems there's been a lot of effort here. Perhaps getting some other outside consultants to fine-tune, tweak, whatever the word is. But I really feel that this type of decision is one of those things that's made at the lowest level in terms of the hierarchy. What works, the teachers know what works, the department chairs, the principal, of course, and I think it should be left in their hands with the final report made to us. Again, if they feel that, yeah, we just like to have another party come in to look at it, great. But I would be, and I've said this already, I would be quite annoyed if something is presented that I really, really know is going to work, and then some other folks who really are not in the system and are not in the classroom are going to say, no, it doesn't work. We know better than you do. And I don't think I know better than the high school teachers do.
Charlie?
Yes, Dr. Bowen, Mrs. Bowen?
I just wondered, I mean, I know we had some high school teachers here. Did anybody want to, comment me? I don't know if they came just to listen or if they had anything to add to the discussion.
I'll speak. A majority of people.
You got to get to the microphone so they... Introduce yourself just for...
Hi, I'm Bill Kimes. I work at Rogers High School. Work for the people of this community. This was hotly debated, and majority of people voted for this schedule, and I think we welcome further discussion.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, not seeing any more hands up. I'll go on to the next item, which is request for proposal for swipe cards, Rogers High School.
Free and reduced lunch update, because I worked real hard on that one.
Oh, my goodness, oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Well, at Mrs. Bowen, I guess, Mr. Leary's request, I forget who requested it, but it was a legitimate request. Can we just double check to make sure, once again, we've captured every youngster in the district who is eligible for free and reduced lunch? And Morrison helped out substantially, as did the building principals and family service coordinators and everybody. We originally found that there were 108 students out of 2,100 and some odd kids who did not have anything on record, either yay, no, whatever, regarding free and reduced lunch. Of those 108, we found that 2 youngsters at Underwood became eligible for reduced lunch, and 6 youngsters from Rogers were eligible for free lunch. If you look at the numbers, you can see that the numbers of youngsters who have been unreported were 60 at Underwood and 45 at Rogers. The 60 at Underwood was to a large extent the huge turnover in the military. And they come in, they figure, hey, we know we're not eligible for free lunch or reduced lunch, and, we're not going to have to fill up the forms and send them back. So we double-checked on that. And Rogers was a bit of that and a bit of the other mobility aspect.
Charlie, can I comment?
Yes.
Well, we worked a year ago with actually the USDA to come up with a form. We were kind of like out there blazing the road, so to speak, and we came up with a form that we would use, because really the stakes are so high now with this, the funding formula based on this, that the form actually said, because you can't force people to turn the form in. But what it was something that just said, you're choosing not to do it. So it was just acknowledgement that you were choosing not to do it, so that we knew whether or not you had one. We actually got the form back from the USDA, and they said that it just had a couple little tweaks that we needed to do, because I think statewide, we need to go to something like this, so that we know when we've gotten each form back from each of these kids, it'll be an easier process, because the stakes are so high. It's $1,642 per student extra that you receive for every free and reduced lunch child. So maybe we need to go back and I send that back in and see if we can get the tweaks on it, because and it would go out at the beginning of the year when you send the forms out, and it's attached to the free and reduced lunch form, and it said, I choose not to, I either filled it in or you chose not to fill it in. And as I said, we were told that we just needed to put some tweaks on it.
My belief is that's what we did, but I'm not sure. All I know all I know is that must have been pretty close to that if we only had 108 folks that didn't respond one way or another.
It's $177,000 sitting out there possibly.
But that wasn't what it turned out to be. I mean, people, see, the problem is that people don't return the.
Right, so that's what I'm saying, the extra form.
But Bobby, people, 90% of the people, more than 90% in terms of this, don't return the forms because they know they're not eligible. They're not going to want to be bothered. And these show exactly that. There was not one youngster from Sullivan, there was not one youngster from Cranston Calvert who didn't return the forms, okay? So hence, we spent a lot of time, effort, and energy, and it was worth it because we found 8 kids. But we have been doing our due diligence with regard to this.
Well, that's 8 kids more that are eating every day, so that's a good thing. But also, what part of it is that, you get this form home and you really don't want it, it's kind of an invasion of privacy. So I think that, parents don't understand, and they might also say, well, my child doesn't really eat at school, doesn't choose to eat at school, so why would I turn it back in? But I think if parents knew how high the stakes were for the district, not just dealing with free and reduced lunch, but the stakes in terms of, what happened, I think we might get more of them in, and then it would say, you don't have to fill it in. I mean, so you just turn it back in and say, I choose not to turn this form, to fill this form out.
Go ahead.
While I was out of town and not directly involved in the process of gathering the information, I believe that a large proportion of the kids that were on that list were private school children. And when we went through and looked at that, we have to keep them on our rolls because we provide services to them, whether it's special ed.
Those youngsters were already taken off of this list,
And so,
Jackie.
okay, the 100 and
those
some?
youngsters were already
Okay.
taken off this list.
I was going to say, I
No,
thought she told
that-
me that a lot of them were.
No, those youngsters were, that's
So-
okay. Those youngsters were already taken off this list because they're private school youngsters.
How about the outside placements, the 45, 46 kids in outside placements? Have they filled them all out?
Yes, they have.
Okay.
Amy Donnelly Roach has been diligent on that when it first came up, Bob.
All right, that's good.
Okay?
It's always fun to
I'd like to praise Mrs. Bowen and the administration for staying on this issue and doing what they've done, and just next year, we've got to do the same, so thank you very much. Okay, now, can I get onto the swipe cards?
Yeah, fine.
Mr. Superintendent?
So what do we do? This came up before, and I'm trying to figure out where what the committee's thinking. Mrs. Gaines and I know that the Pell School will have a swipe card situation for security, and also that can be used for other purposes like teacher attendance and things of that nature. So
yes,
that will be in place. Then secondly, I know that at Thompson there have been Osiris Gonzalez, our new tech person, and the folks at Thompson met with the security person within the last couple of weeks. I'm not too sure where that went, but there are two locations where there could be a swipe card in the front and in the back of the school. Thompson would probably have to be 3 different locations. The question is...
You mean Rogers?
Sorry, thank you, Joe. Rogers would have to be three different locations, because it's still a it's still an octopus. So these are the types of things that we need to find out whether or not the committee is interested definitively in pursuing this activity. And then if it is, at least getting some idea in terms of a ballpark number as to what the cost would be for Thompson and Rogers.
Right, very good. Well, and that's why I put it on the agenda, because we do have a policy, and we'll have to either change our policy then if that's the case, because it says we have to measure it in an audible way. So if you're going to make the elementary teachers, again, here we go, the elementary teachers less time than anybody else, the whole system prep time, now they're going to have to swipe it up and nobody else. I don't think that's fair. So I think that if you're going to do the elementary teachers, let's do the whole system. I'll spend the money personally.
If you're talking about security,
Yeah.
the security is just as important in the middle school and the high school as it is in elementary. That's what I can understand.
Absolutely.
Charlie?
That I can
Yes.
understand.
Ms. Ball?
I actually, on the suggestion of one of our school committee members here, I called Woonsocket today. I'm sorry, Westerly, but Woonsocket also has the system. They put it in place for security measures.
Yes, we do, of
And that
course.
was the reason they put it into all their schools. And they said that it also, you can utilize the data, for coming in and out, but that it definitely upped their security, made parents feel more secure, and that there wasn't any pushback from teachers, and I think especially since we're going to be doing it at the elementary school, we should really look as a safety,
Did they use it for monitoring tardiness for teachers? Did they say that?
No, they said that wasn't the reason they implemented it, but that they
but-
do gather that data. It gathers that data. So,
We were,
yes.
we were told by the people who are putting in the security at the Pell School that that aspect can be added for additional cost, okay? You can program the system to do whatever you want, but you pay for it. The problem of security has bothered me for a long time at Rogers. It's better now, but I used to come down when I'd come for the sit meetings, and the door on the walkway that goes from the gym, the auditorium to the school would be propped open. And it's hard because the kids come out that door and they leave it open for their buddies. I don't know how you
That's going to be.
handle that. But it bothers me that somebody could walk in off the street and walk into our schools. I try not to think about it, but it's,
We can.
it worries me.
And Joe, we can certainly do something about that at Thompson and at Pell. It really becomes problematic here in the Rogers campus because of the way it all works. You have to have the doors open for kids to get from the main building to NACTAC, from one wing in the science lab to the 100s. Everybody would have to, I don't know how we would do it. I don't know either, I don't know. I don't know how we would do it. I understand, we all have the same concern, but.
My personal comment is, with this incident in Connecticut, we have got to do something. When I walk by Rogers and see the doors wide open, and the public must feel the same way, what are you guys doing when we need to have more security? I think this is one option. I think it's a lot better option than having a policeman with a gun sitting at the door, and some of the other options. I'd personally like to see it explored. I know there's some problems in between the two schools here at the Rogers site, but nevertheless, I think of all the options that are available, this is the most appealing one to me as far as reestablishing security.
I have to tell you this, but what really, and I think I called Jack in a panic. I had a call, my husband had a meeting at the high school, and the message that I was given was to tell him to go to a certain door, it would always be open.
There's only 70 doors.
Well, no, they told me what door it was. I said, what do you mean it's always open? It's open.
So have you got your answer?
Now, if people in the community know that, and there's a wacko out there,
Yeah,
Yeah, and that was taken care of.
oh,
yeah.
So can we put it up on RFQ, RFP?
I don't know. I don't know.
You know
I
what,
don't have the answer.
I will talk with Mr. Fagan, and I'll talk with whoever showed up to Thompson in terms of that security thing there, and see what they have to say. I think Thompson may be a whole lot easier than Rogers, but we'll see what we.
Well, they have the
There has
cameras
to-
there. They
There
have
has to be a solution.
Mr.
Yep.
Chair,
Yes, Mr. Phelan?
oh, is it possible that we can close those walkways that are open? I mean, I'm not, that's the only way you're gonna be able to say only certain doors can be worked or whatever. I mean, right now I can think about this, two, except for the,
I mean,
from this building to
that's like if you
Rogers.
close the Seconic Bridge and you have to go all the way around. I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to.
Not close it, but enclose them. So you have.
Oh, you mean enclose the walkways?
walkway.
Oh, got it.
That's
Okay,
different.
yeah, okay.
Except
That's
for, this is the
But
only
then
part.
have more
Rogers
height.
can't-
that's a
it.
that's a concept.
But the
Yeah,
main
I got.
building, you could do it.
Yeah, I got that. Okay, yeah. Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I worked down in West the last couple of years, and that's how I know that they did a swipe system down there. Certainly elementary schools, like our elementary schools, I mean, there's limited access coming in and out of those buildings, so you can have a swipe on those doors. Thompson was designed to have limited access, so you can clearly do it there.
cameras, yeah.
You know, Rogers High School has 48 different doors on it. That was the last count I had, unless they've added some since I left. But Wesley also had a similar situation where they have two buildings and the kids go across a large quadrangle to go back and forth between the buildings. So I think if we're going to look at that, they have some similar issues as far as kids having to leave one building, go to another building during the day, getting in and out. And they have a number of doors in both of those buildings because they're going between two buildings. So I think that if we're going to go down this road, and I agree that everybody should be on the same page. If everybody's going to be doing it, we're all going to do it, you know, K to 12. But they, I think, have blazed a little bit of the trail for us, and we could save some time by finding out what some of their issues are, because they have similar issues with their high school, with lots of doors, a big quadrangle. They have a new middle school that has a lot more restrictive access, and they've got elementary schools that are going to be like our school, where there's not a lot of doors.
I think the question in front of us is, does the superintendent wants to get some sense whether you should pursue it? I hear most of the people saying, is there anybody objecting to having the superintendent pursue the concept of swiping?
It'd be good to look at.
Yeah, that's all we're going to do is look at it. We're not necessarily proving anything yet. Okay,
May I add to that?
yes.
And improve the safety features of the high school.
Good. All right, 7.4, which is business office staffing update.
Nothing much has changed. I asked Joan Tracy whether or not I could bring in somebody temporarily. She said that would just be more of a problem for her because she'd have to train the person when she's trying to get through the UCOA and get the budget online. So a temporary person wasn't a fix for her. April 15th is coming up soon, and we'll go out and take a look once again to see whether or not anybody's available for that position. This has been very frustrating, as you well know. This has been very frustrating for me professionally and personally over the last 2.5 years dealing with a situation which I can't get my hands around, and that is in terms of being able to ask where things are in the budget and getting an answer that is spot on and that I can rely on. And it has not been my experience before this time, and I hope we get through this and we're able to get some stability in this department and get UCOA online. But right now, I don't have a magic bullet, and when I offered everything, and the response was, that's not helpful. So that's my update on that one.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I wonder if we can't, going down the road, look at Bryant, URI, and see if there's some way, working with either one of those institutions that have people that have that kind of background and see if we can't do some recruiting as opposed to just, as we've done in the past, we've certainly, put things out that you think that people are looking for jobs and they're going to apply. Sometimes maybe we have to take a different route and go right to where they're graduating these people and see if we can do some recruiting over there.
Good idea.
We need so many years' experience. So.
Next item is
You have to
7.5,
have the
which is
experience, yeah.
legal counsel selection process for collective bargaining contract negotiation process. I think Mr. Leary is the one to propose this.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think, first of all, somebody said earlier tonight, there's not a person in this committee, I would hope not, that we have made the most progress for the contraction in the last 2 years that we ever had. And one of the biggest things we made is that we went from the shortest school day of 6 hours to 6 hours and 15 minutes. So more time in front of the kids. And I don't know what number we are now, but I think it's time that we take a look at possibly having a report done as we had done with the coal burn back about 7, 8 years ago, whatever that was, and let them look at different things from 5 or 6 different districts, hire an attorney or hire a company to do it, and then get ready to have this attorney in place for negotiations coming up next year, because, we've got 3 months left in this school year, and then you're into next school year, and you got to start negotiating with 2 contracts again. So I think it's time we get going on advertising for that legal counsel, and my opinion is that we did an excellent job with the last group, and I would prefer that we stay with them, but we have to follow the policy.
Any other comments on that issue?
I have a question.
Yes, Mrs. Gaines.
If we've already hired them, why does we didn't contract with them for that one
Okay,
session.
that's fine. So then my question would be, can we talk to them about doing a comparative analysis
They did that.
of different school districts? I'll put it on paper for us now, for another one now, going forward. What districts does, how many hours each one has in class time, how much they co-pay they have, how much the whole list.
Can't be gotten from,
They did that.
Mr. Chairman?
They didn't give,
Yes. Mr. Powers?
I agree with Mr. Leary that I think that, going forward, to have a strategy of what we're going to do with negotiations is a good idea. I would only suggest that we limit the scope because of the cost involved in using these people, that if there's 5 or 6 things that the committee thinks are important, whether they be health care benefits or their salaries or it's time with kids in class and whatever, that we ask them to do a comparison, but not on everything, but let's pick, 5, 6, 7, 8, or whatever things that people think are important, and ask them to give us a perspective on that. I'm all for that kind of comparison.
Yes.
Contracts and question. If we're going to talk about hiring our lawyers for litigation going forward and contract discussions, I think we ought to do it in closed session, so that we're not giving away anything.
Okay. Let me just comment about OPEB. Last night's paper had a pretty good article by Sean Flynn. And if you'll notice that the fire and police OPEB liabilities were less than the schools. And what I'm beginning to find out, I'm trying to get the liaison committee to do this, and they haven't quite come around to it, is to put what the benefits are for the various school teachers, for the non-certified teachers, for police, fire, administrators at the city. And you'll notice that the benefit package for the police and fire is a lot cheaper than our benefit package. So we don't have to look very far to look at a comparative analysis, that we have an opportunity to really save money. If you guys can get behind me and try to get the city council to show that data, you will see some significant differences, which will give us some leverage, I think, in future contracts.
Did you misspeak about the police and fire? I think their benefit packet is a lot better than.
No, they don't get, they're not the retirees.
Oh, okay. That's
No,
different.
they.
so what's the consensus of the committee with this going forward?
Well, I think we have to do it, don't you?
I would agree. You want to sit down and put an executive session next time so we can talk about it?
Yes,
Sure.
Going forward, I have no problem with that. I want to get started. I know it's March, but September will be here soon enough. We got to start negotiating,
Yep. I want to move on to that item number 7.6, strategic plan, reporting schedule. Mrs. Gaines?
Is that the point,
I've got to sit down with
Dr.
Dr.
Nasbo?
Nasbo and the superintendent, because
Thank you, yeah.
I have not been
You've been
I'm not-
otherwise involved, haven't you, with
Huh?
other things? You've been doing other things, I guess.
Well, I have been, but I think we need to develop a reporting schedule, because a lot of the things that we fought for in that strategic plan back in 2010, some things have been accomplished, some things are in process, and I won't say that some things have not begun, but it's quite possible, because we haven't looked at it. So we need to update that plan, make sure we're on target. It's especially crucial now that we are about to hire a new superintendent, that we have our ducks in a row when that person comes to look at us. Because if we get a great candidate that we want, and they look at us and say, "You're a mess here, we don't want to be here," oh, that doesn't feel too good. So let's get our house in order. And we start that by looking at that strategic plan.
My reason for putting it on the agenda was, I was hoping that maybe we've got April, May, and June, maybe, I don't know if we meet in July, but
No.
maybe over those 3 periods, over those 3 months, whether there's about 8.
No, you're going to get it in one session, because it's not something that needs to be rolled out for 3 months. The plan is there, the people are in place who are responsible for carrying out the plan. We simply need to report out.
Okay, well, let's get a schedule, get it done. Okay, Pell Building Committee, update, Mrs. Gaines?
Oh. I want to apologize, Becky, and to the rest of the committee. I didn't realize that the minutes were not included. We have been meeting weekly. If you drive by now, you will see there are windows. Painting inside the building has, first coat and primer in Building A is complete. They're working on Building C. The kitchen has been, the walk-ins have been installed. The things, the vents, not the vents, hoods. The hoods have been installed. This was all last week. I haven't been in this week. The building is on time. They are expecting to, are hoping to deliver the building 2 weeks before the deadline. So they're working. There are hundreds of people working inside that building, and they're getting it done.
A lot of them are working on Saturday, too.
Yeah. Well, they've had to work on Saturday because we've lost a lot of time with the weather. But they're working hard.
And they continue to tell us that they will be
They will have it on time.
on time. We went out for the bid package for furniture, and that's due back April 4th, I believe, so we should be all on schedule for that. We're continuing to work on technology. I had a meeting yesterday with the technology folks to try and make head nor tails out of the USAC response, which we're still trying to figure out. We had a very big push for kindergarten registration this year. You couldn't miss the signs if you went anywhere in Newport. People were calling out, "What does this mean?" It means what it means. It's kindergarten registration. Go on the website. We did a great job of advertising, and we had 86 students who registered for kindergarten as a result of that. Given the past year's registration versus enrollment ratio, even at a very aggressive level, we would project to have 172 youngsters in Pell School for kindergarten this coming year. As I had previously said, you need to take a look at the live birth rates in any given year, and this is the year when youngsters were born immediately after the downturn in the economy, so people weren't having kids, and it's reflective of these numbers in the registration. So if you look at the registration versus enrollment percentage, 10, 11, and 12, 56% of our youngsters were enrolled, 56% of our registrants ultimately made up the enrollment. Next year it was 58. Last year it was 66%. And this year, even if I use the lowest, and this is lower by 6% from all of the previous years, the kindergarten enrollment would be projected to be 172. If in fact, and that would be 8 classrooms. And 8 classrooms could go up to, I think it's 186 students. So I feel very confident that we will have less youngsters this coming year than in the previous years, except for 2010, and that's due to the birth rate.
Yes, Mr. Phelan?
Dr. Ambrosi, is this the same time period for registration that we did last year, or the year before?
It's 3 weeks earlier.
3 weeks earlier.
3 weeks earlier, but we did a much better job in advertising for it, and we made it convenient to folks in the North End. So
there's no concern that people might have just ignored it, figuring they're going to do it late like they...
no, there's no concern at all with regard to that. As I said before, it's a year where there was a lower birth rate. And then the next year is going to have a low birth rate as well. It may come back as the economy comes back, people feel better about their lives, and they'll have kids again.
Copulate.
So,
All right.
and we did it 3 weeks early, and with the understanding that we needed to promote it quickly. Not quickly, promote it widespread. Everybody knew about it, and so we could get a better handle on the projection. And again, don't forget, I'm using a low percentage, 50%, which is lower than any other. Excuse me, higher than any other of the percent, lower than any of the other percentages, right? And that enrollment is 172. That's 7.5 classrooms or 7.6 classrooms. So if you have 8 classrooms, you multiply 8 by 23, and you get what you get. So I feel very comfortable that there will be a need for 8 kindergarten classrooms, maybe 7, but I don't know at this point in time.
Speaking of Pell, I got an interesting email on the way to the meeting tonight. Councilwoman Naomi Neville, who was architect herself, said she was requesting if she could put in a garden at Pell School, and I believe she has a fund of about $2,000. Mrs. Gaines says there's room for a garden, so maybe we can make a
Well, we had
match.
talked about having a garden there. In fact, 2 gardens, one for the upper school and one for the lower. So maybe she can take her pick.
I'll give her, I'll
Mr. Gaines? Mrs. Gaines.
next,
Wait a
Mr.
minute.
I'm sorry.
I have some questions for Mrs. Gaines about
Oh, dear.
Pell School, I know. Okay, so, number 1, where are we with the playground? Has that been ordered?
Yes,
So we have
Yes.
equipment, that's all ordered, right?
that's done.
Okay, but we don't have benches, I mean, like benches for the playgrounds, or what about, that's something that we could be added later on, that's another part of the discussion. Okay, what about the landscaping? I saw that in the minutes. Is that an ad alternative at this point? Where are we with that?
The plantings are in the alternates. So we talked a little bit about that last week, but not a whole lot.
We were hoping to get some help from the
Yeah.
city with regard to a lot of the trees. But obviously, we want technology, we want the playground equipment, and we want furniture first. So we have to go a little slowly on the landscaping, as we discussed.
Yeah, we did talk about using less mature plantings. I mean, they do grow, so we don't have to put them in at,
150 years, they'll be pretty big.
Well,
So-
okay, and then my next question is, I know that there was a lot of discussion earlier about naming of rooms, like, and I just think it might be a lost opportunity, and I keep hearing people come to me and say, when are you gonna do it? So,
We-
I mean,
I'm going to ask Dr. Powell to handle that.
we could designate it for like technology, all of it. I
Well,
mean,
he did a great job with Thompson, and I'm sure he can do
Let's-
a great job for Pell.
I'm willing to help him on it, because I just think I want to make sure we take every opportunity to,
So how would that work?
So,
Like you would-
Mrs. Gaines, does this mean that we are going to do that?
Yeah, we talked about it.
Well, I
forever.
know we've talked about it, but I've never heard anybody say
Let's
that they
do it.
want to go ahead and do it, because, I mean, if, in fact, we're going to do it, then that means that there's a little bit of planning that has to go into that, and there's, it's not going to happen in a week, I mean, so I just, if the committee wants to do that, that's fine, I'd be happy to help move that forward, but I've never heard anybody say, yes, we're going to do it.
Well, we haven't had it as an action item on the school committee agenda. We have a building committee meeting planned for March 20,
7th? I forget, let me see. Oh, my Lord.
I think it's a Tuesday, the last Tuesday in March.
which is getting kind of, I would hope we could start jumping on it, just getting going, if that's the direction this committee wants to go. I'd hate to lose that kind of an opportunity for,
You're not gonna lose that up, that, we can do that. It's not, it won't be lost. We can always put a name on a room.
I think it was the 20th,
Yeah.
wasn't it?
I do have some concerns with that, if we have a serious amount of money in the contingency fund.
What do you mean?
If we have a lot of
We
money in the
don't.
contingency fund,
We
we should
don't.
know how much is in it before you start looking at that.
No,
And-
no. The contingency fund has nothing to do with the naming of rooms. The contingency fund comes from the bond, the building issue.
Right,
We can't use that money for
right, but if you end up
certain
with,
things.
you end up with 500,000 left over, and you ask people to name rooms, it gives you, there's a bad taste there.
You're not gonna, I doubt that you'll have that much left
Yeah.
over.
But I do think that, Mr. Chairman, I think that, that's a very good point, is that if we do go out and name rooms, that when we did it last time, we had a very specific purpose in mind for the money. And again, if we're going, and we go forward, then we should be looking at, what is that, people are going to say, well, when I give you this money, what happens to that money? And I think we'd be
And we
saying.
don't know yet.
Well-
And we don't know yet. So that's why I haven't been bringing this to the
Yeah,
floor.
no, I'm just saying that if we.
It may be laptops, it may be a lot of different.
Well, or it could
right?
be, an endowment for that building so that we have money going forward to replace laptops and those kinds of things. But I think we have to be able to answer that question.
I think also, the reason I brought up the park benches is because, we want this to be a really, like a welcoming place, and nothing welcomes parents more on a playground than putting some benches out at the school. And I know the city does, and they're running out of places to put benches, but when somebody dies, somebody wants to put their name on a bench, and honor someone, we could then, let the city know that we were interested if anybody wanted to come forward with park benches to go around the playground, so. Anyway, just something to think, one more thing to think about.
Yeah. Well, no, we have a building committee meeting next week.
Okay.
We'll talk about it at
Right.
the building
I just-
committee meeting.
No,
And then we'll bring it back to the committee if we need action on it.
Right, and we've talked about this before, and my position has always been that if in fact we have money in the bond, that we spend the money in the bond first, and then if we need extra help, then we can ask the residents of the city of Newport for the help.
Right.
That's what I think we should be doing. We promise certain things. We're working hard to make sure we drag it across the finish line. If we can't drag it across the finish line, then and only then do you say, hey, listen, could you help us out of it?
Right,
Yeah, I agree.
okay. Okay.
On, next one is 8.2 is enrollment. I'm sorry.
Oh.
Expenditure.
Yeah, I was hoping you
would dodge.
Not me.
gloss over that one. Yeah, I am very, and I've been saying this since last year's budget. I am very concerned about where everything is and where we're going to end up this year. We've already heard that there may be a problem with the revenue from the federal government for impact aid. The most recent information I've received from Joan Tracy is that her forecast is that we're in a deficit in terms of the salaries to the tune of $317,000. I just got information this afternoon that we may be in an additional deficit of approximately $167,000 for special education tuitions. I put a freeze on all non-essential or emergency purchase orders effective today. We're going to be drilling down into every possible option that we have to find out where the problem lies. It may be that it involves substitute teachers and the fact that they weren't considered in terms of the budget. But at the end of the day, this is a serious concern. And I wish, and I've said this before, I wish I had a better handle on exactly what this all means, but as soon as I received it, I gave it to you. And I got this on Friday, and then I just found out today about the special ed tuitions. And again, we'll let you know as soon as we know. Joan Tracy is in Providence tonight. I couldn't be there for the bond approval, so I asked her to go up there this evening for that. That's all I know at this point in time. But we will move heaven and earth to make sure that we don't end the year in the red. But right now, there's obviously a serious concern.
So when we look at this under the revenues, the difference in operation aid from the city's the same, the federal's the same, line by line. The difference is in the anticipated month. For the last 3 or 4 months, it's been $4.7 million. Now, all of a sudden, it's $3.7 million operation aid. Why?
The state changed didn't the state change?
Well, we'll change it in May? I mean, March?
No, which one, Bobby? Tell
If
me.
you look at, if you go to the revenues page,
Right.
okay, go right to operation aids in the state, and it says 10 million for budget, 6.8 for.
Well, if you,
next line.
hopefully if you add the 6.8 and the 3 point whatever, that gives you the total expected, Bob.
Well, if you look for the last 3 months, it's been $4.7 million anticipated, and now it's $3.7 million.
That's
So is
because
that a
we already
mistake?
got some. That's because we already got some. If you add the actual receipts and the anticipated together, it should give you the expected. Okay?
It's a yearly.
If you add, see, as you get it, the anticipated goes
Okay.
down. So the actual is something,
So-
1 month, so that's the way this process should work.
So in the salaries, and I won't keep belaboring this and keep anybody here longer, in the salaries, I'm a little concerned that for the last 4 or 5 months, we've been running $430,000 in the black, and now this month, we're $300,000 in the red.
Yeah, obviously, Bob, that is obviously my
So
concern.
what,
as
I don't
well.
get what happens, it's May. I mean,
You know, guess what? I don't understand why it turned out that way either. I think that
It's
sometimes
hard for me to get to.
sometimes people
So-
look at little parts of what they think they're doing and don't put the whole thing together. And I know that they've been working on this UCOA, and the forecast, I think, And where the mistake was made is they just forecast the actual permanent staff employees and didn't, this is my belief, although I haven't been able to ask that question yet, they didn't consider the substantial costs that we have for substitute teachers. And that's why I believe
So-
that there's that change.
Seeing we have, thank you, seeing we have budget things coming on, could I get I know we're short-staffed, could I get a line-by-line detail of everything in the budget?
I'm happy if she can get the stuff
Well-
back from the administrators, Bob.
I know,
we
you
ever-
just have a hard time doing budgets, you can't get details.
If we
Well,
ever,
I understand that, Bob.
You need a detailed count of every single line.
Yeah, I understand that.
that's what you're gonna get with UCOA, if we ever get it done.
Yeah, I mean, you should,
You'll see line by line.
The city council at the liaison meeting indicated they want to have a joint meeting with us soon
yeah.
about
Yeah,
budget,
details,
and,
yeah.
and
But they were, and
So-
and the idea was they were going to tell us what they had, not ask us
Yeah.
what we needed.
All right, because I don't want to go in there, as we've been doing for the last, and I'm not saying these numbers are right or wrong, because you need details to look at them, but I don't want to go in there and preach Armageddon again, and ask for money when we may not need it, and, because I think too many times, and I'm not saying we do or don't need it at this point, I mean, you
I
can't.
don't know, Bob.
Yeah, me
I really
either,
don't know.
I know,
Okay?
I don't want to go in there.
And I've never been, concerned before. I've always figured that we were going to be fine.
Yeah, but I don't want to approach this budget season with the fact telling that we're $300,000 in the hole, and then say, oh, all right, because too many times we've done that. When we had surpluses, we asked for money, and last year we asked for $675,000, we had $650 left over, we didn't need it. So I have a concern that you do this so many times, it's like that, someone mentioned, it's like the guy watching the sheep out there, and he cries wolf, and everybody comes running, and nothing happens. So now all of a sudden we're crying wolf, and maybe we do need money, but they're not going to believe it. So until you get a detailed report.
The difference between, everybody has their different approaches as to what crying wolf means. I always believe that there should be a substantial available balance in the school department's budget every year. The city has a substantial available balance available to them every year, so they don't have to worry about these things. So we have a difference of philosophical opinion on public financing of schools. And my belief is that school departments should keep a 3% available balance, and that's state law in a lot of places, Bob. And because of the way the process works in Rhode Island, that's not the way we do things here. So,
I have a question.
Mrs. James.
Is it possible that in setting up the budget, that we did not allocate enough for substitute teachers? Is that where the,
You need a detailed report.
I need to find out, and my belief was that they did, but that was
But how can you
that was Mr. Miley, and I don't know how you can predict, and I don't know how much of it was supposed to be under title funds, and we'll have to take a look and see what's available, how much is raced to the top. Maybe that money hasn't been allocated, et cetera. But Bob, I would have been remiss not having received this information, not sharing it with you.
Right.
Okay?
That's what I was going to ask, when you have the subs coming in, we're not talking about a teacher being out ill, but when you have professional development,
Here, the Dana
that's what that race to the
workshops
top, yeah.
Yeah.
So is the case, it's in another little bucket, or it hasn't
Well,
come in yet?
we need to find that out.
Where it is,
I really
yeah.
need to find out exactly
Where that went.
where that is, and
Yeah.
I need to meet with
That's
Joan.
probably what it is, yeah.
And see if she has an update in terms of this, and in terms of perhaps where it's allocated. Perhaps these monies have been offset by some grant monies. I don't know. What has happened is that the UCOA is so specific that I think she's been working on this with a number of different people, probably Marson and Jackie and a whole lot of folks, to find out where everyone's supposed to be supposed to be allocated in terms of their cost centers. So as soon as I know, I'm all for transparency. This is as much transparency as I can give you. When I have information, I let you know. And if you're asking me whether or not I would go to the bank on that's what this is, my answer is no, I wouldn't. But this is what I know now. But what I would say is we do have a problem with the special ed tuitions. We've had an inordinate amount of youngsters who have moved in from DCYF placements, and we don't have any control over that. They place the youngsters in out-of-district placements, and they get our special ed per pupil cost assigned to us.
So before we do any budget things, that should be a priority of getting a list of everybody from the outside placements?
That's what we've got.
Every one of the numbers, because last time was 47 students. Where are we compare that now?
Yeah, and the problem is we're down in, we're down in the ones that we can control, but we're up in the out-of-district placements. And there was a $88,000 swing on the Met tuitions, so we're under budgeted for the Met tuitions by approximately $88,000 if my memory serves me. So, it's not good news, but hopefully it's not as bad news as I'm reporting tonight. We'll find out.
I see there was no damage reports, so go on to the...
Wasn't that enough damage, Dr.
You want to talk about the roof?
About Roman?
Yeah.
Triplet?
I have a question. Charlie?
Yeah.
Director Jack, how many kids do we have at the Met School? Is it?
I don't
We
know
don't
off the
know.
top of my head. I just remember the dollars. I don't remember, I
And is
don't know.
that the total amount we pay them, or is that just partial? You said that was a swing, so is that? Do
But
we
that was a total amount.
That we owe them
I think there was a miscommunication or understanding by the previous business administrator as to what the tuition costs were going to be.
Are we paying 100% now? Or does that go up each year? Is it?
I think we're close to where we're supposed to be. It's a lot of money. Anytime you have a private or charter school in your district, you lose money.
Yep.
So, damage reports.
About
Yeah,
Roman?
I will talk about triple. We have some substantial problems with the, I don't know how you call it, damage, but it's damage because of the Hurricane Nemo or whatever, Storm Nemo and hurricanes. The roof at Triplet is a very difficult situation.
You give us that.
We're going to have to, my recommendation is that we redo the roof at Triplet this summer. There are all sorts of problems. It's springing so many leaks. It's down into the, it's down into the baseboard. We have a room there that had to be moved because of the smell. We're very appreciative of the teachers who are working with us with the understanding that that's going to be fixed as soon as possible. We've had some temporary measures. We brought in ServPro or one of those other organizations to get rid of the smell. This was just a bad winter for all of these things, and we had thought that all things being equal, we would have been able to make through this school year without the new roof. But because of the hurricane and the substantial, like every Wednesday or something, or the weekends, the snow, that's what really did us in.
I was told that the only school that had no leaks was Pell.
Well, that's a good thing. That's my update on that, and I will be coming back to you with a recommendation that we find out and go out for a bid for Triplet's roof.
Yes, so Mr. Chairman?
I know.
Go ahead, Ms. Heath.
I was going to ask if there was any need for the facilities committee to meet with you and Paul, or is this just something that you guys can go ahead and do? Because the roof has to be fixed.
The roof has to be done. I mean, certainly we could meet and you could go over there and see how bad it is.
It's been put off too long.
Yeah,
It should have been done years ago.
what my next steps are, and I talked with Paul, is to get somebody to do the specs and go out for an RFP. So as soon as school lets out.
Only patch so much.
Right, as soon as school lets out, we take care of that, and then that building is good for another 25 years.
Yeah.
So I guess my question here is that, as fiscally conservative as I am, I'm very big at keeping my buildings up, and everybody knows that, how I'm
Right.
voting that. I'm not sure we should be doing that or not doing poor Rogers roof, because do we need to keep that building? If we don't need to keep that building, that'd be somebody else's responsibility to fix that roof for $300,000.
It's my
Put that
belief.
money into Rogers, which we have to keep.
It is my belief that for the foreseeable future, we need to do that building, and I don't know whether or not it has to be an either-or thing. We can put one in this year's budget and then one in next year's budget in capital. So I think for the foreseeable future, we'll need to hold on to triplet.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
Yeah, what about if you rent back to community school, maybe they could do the roof. They have the money, they're paying rent somewhere else. Maybe they could fix the roof.
We could take a look at partial usage of the community school and charge rent, which would defer some of the costs for the roof, Bob. We could do a lot
Yeah.
of different things, but unless that roof is done, at some point in time, there's going to be all sorts of issues there, and as Tom pointed out to me, it should have been done a long time ago.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we've been limping along on this, hoping that there would be a solution where it wouldn't be our problem, but I think it is our problem, so.
okay.
Superintendent's report?
We miss enrollments.
What is it, as listed?
Enrollments,
Oh,
damage report, superintendent's
Yeah.
I didn't do
update.
enrollments.
Enrollments?
Enrollments.
Okay. The enrollments are listed.
So my concern or comment to the rest of the committee is that you're going to have two classes at Rogers next year, one at 120 kids and one at 115 kids. Very small classes.
We're all on the track team.
Yeah. I guess
Yeah, well,
so.
I think you got to look at that when you start looking at staffing and everything else, when you start doing budgets next year. You're going to have two classes with, you may have a graduating class next year of under 100.
Now,
Under 100.
we'll work real hard that doesn't happen.
I'm just saying, it's a possibility,
I remember that one year when we were close and we.
Yeah. We passed them out.
Drag somebody out.
We passed them out, which I'm not a fan of.
No.
Well, I heard a couple kids got called, they were sleeping in bed, weren't supposed to be passed, they moved up.
We had 102.
Yeah, we had 102.
Yeah.
And three
Okay,
kids got
so-
called.
So, in my report as listed, I've been doing things, so.
Entertain a motion to receive the reports.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Move we adjourn.
So, next meeting,
Agenda items.
things for agenda items for next meeting?
Yeah, go ahead.
I got a lot, I'll put up a couple anyways, I'll do it later on, but one I think is important, we saw the business manager, what is the title for the food service people tonight, she was here?
Yeah, food service.
Yeah, I think we need to talk about the money that's been debt the kids that owe lunch. We're somewhere up, I heard maybe $8,000 to $10,000 that is owed by people for lunch right now. So I think this committee's gonna start making a choice what they're gonna do for the people who owe money,
Any other items? Bobby?
No, if I can think of it now, I'll email the rest of them.
Anybody else have any items for Mr. Marsh?
I just want to point out to the committee that Portsmouth High School graduation is tentatively scheduled for June 6th, which is a week before the Rogers.
Thank you, Marson, I really appreciate that. I knew that.
What about Milltown?
Town's calendar is not yet available, but it's usually on a Saturday, so I'm.
Saturday
expecting
before
that it-
Father's Day.
Beautiful.
Oh, we'll see.
I want
See,
grandparents happy.
There we go.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Rembus.